It's strange how a friendship can feel like home, right up until the moment it does and single quotes t. For as long as I can remember, that home was Mara. We met when we were 12. I had just moved to a new town, awkward, shy, carrying my mom's anxiety and my dad's silence. Mara was the opposite of me in every possible way. Loud, bright, effortlessly magnetic. She had this way of walking into a room and rearranging everyone's attention without trying. She became my anchor, my sister, my other half. We went through everything together, heartbreaks, bad grades, her parents' divorce, my first panic attack in sophomore year. When I got into college, she got a job in town. We didn't drift. We promised we never would, but people lie sometimes, not with their words, but with their shadows. It started one night in February. A storm was beating against my apartment windows, the kind of rain that hums low and relentless. Mara had come over after a fight with her boyfriend, a guy I'd never liked. She'd been drinking, just a little too much. We sat on my couch, both of us barefoot, legs tucked under a blanket. She was quieter than usual, staring at the ceiling. Then she said, "Do you ever wonder how far someone would go to keep a secret?" I thought she was talking about him, about infidelity or money or something trivial, so I laughed. I shouldn't have. She turned to look at me, and the look in her eyes made me stop breathing for a second. They weren't teary or soft. They were flat, empty. "I mean it," she said. What if someone did something unforgivable, but they did it for the right reason? I remember swallowing hard. "Mara, what are you talking about?" She didn't answer right away. She just traced a circle on the side of her glass and said quietly, "Sometimes people deserve what happens to them." And then she told me it wasn't a full confession. Not yet. It came out fragmented, words like accident and he wouldn't stop, and I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to think she meant self-defense or something symbolic, but her tone didn't sound like guilt. It sounded like relief. When she noticed my silence, she smiled faintly, as if daring me to react. "You always said I could tell you anything," she whispered. "You said you'd never judge me." I said I wouldn't. My voice didn't sound like mine. She leaned back, staring at the window where the lightning flared behind the curtains. "Then you'll keep my secret," she said. "Promise me." "Lily, promise you won't ever repeat what I said tonight." I nodded before my mind even caught up. My throat was dry. The air felt thinner than before. After she left, I just sat there in silence, the clock ticking, the rain fading, trying to convince myself she was exaggerating. That maybe it was just a metaphor, a drunken confession that didn't mean what it sounded like. But my gut knew better. The next morning, I texted her, "Hey, are you okay? About last night?" She replied instantly, "You promised, remember? Some things are better buried." I didn't answer. I deleted the conversation. That was the first time I ever felt afraid of my best friend. Over the next few days, she acted like nothing had happened. She'd send me memes, ask if I wanted coffee, talk about her weekend plans. But I couldn't unhear her voice from that night. Every time she laughed, I wondered if she was laughing about what she'd done. Once, I tried to bring it up lightly. "Hey, what you said the other night, that was just you venting, right?" She stopped smiling. "Do you really think I'd joke about something like that?" Her tone sliced through me. Then she smiled again, softer. "You worrying too much, Lily." But after that, she started showing up uninvited, checking in too often, asking what I'd been doing, who I'd been talking to. Her questions weren't friendly anymore. They were cautious, like she was tracking me. I remember one night, she stood at my door after I didn't answer her call. Her face was wet from rain again, just like that night. "Why didn't you pick up?" She asked quietly. "You know I don't like when you ignore me." It wasn't said with anger. It was said with control. And for the first time in years, I locked my door after she left. Maybe I should have gone to someone then. Maybe I should have told the police, or my parents, or anyone. But I didn't have proof. I didn't even know what crime she had confessed to. Just that something, or someone, had been erased from her story. Still, something about her tone that night. Something about the way she said he wouldn't stop. It made me feel like she had done it before. That's the night I stopped calling her best friend. If you find this story good, please like and subscribe our channel. It's free for you but helps us a lot to keep sharing real stories like this. That night changed me. Every sound after dark, every knock, every flash of headlights outside my apartment, I started thinking of her, wondering if she'd come back, if she'd realized she'd said too much. I didn't know yet that her secret wasn't just about her past. It was about what she was about to do next, and I was already part of it, whether I wanted to be or You're not. You don't. Stop loving someone overnight, even when they scared you. 4 weeks after Mara's confession, I told myself it was the alcohol talking. She'd had too much wine. Too many heartbreaks. Too many bottled up emotions that found the wrong exit. That was easier to believe than the alternative, that she was serious. That my best friend might have hurt someone. I remember looking at her name on my phone every morning, hesitating before opening her messages. She texted like nothing had happened. Good mornings, random memes, want coffee, normal, familiar. And yet, behind every emoji, I could see that flicker from that night. The cold glint in her eyes when she said, "Sometimes people deserve what happens to them." Still, she was Mara. She'd been there through everything. When my mom was in the hospital, when my ex cheated, when I lost my job, she'd held me up when I was falling apart. So I tried to be what she'd always been for me, loyal. But loyalty feels different when it's mixed with fear. One evening, she showed up at my apartment uninvited again. She was holding takeout and wearing that same blue hoodie she used to sleep in when we had movie nights. I figured we could eat together, she said. Like old times, her tone was warm, too warm, forced almost. I wanted to say no, but the look in her eyes told me I shouldn't. She placed the bags on my counter and started humming softly, like she always did when she wanted to avoid a conversation. Halfway through dinner, she said, "You've been distant, Lil." I froze. "I've just been busy," I said, my voice sounding thin. She smiled without looking at me, busy avoiding me. The silence stretched between us like glass about to crack. Then she laughed. "Relax, I'm kidding." But she wasn't, and we both knew it. After that night, the tone of our friendship began to shift. She started checking on me constantly, texting me at all hours, showing up at my work during lunch breaks, asking questions that felt intrusive. "Who were you with last night? You didn't answer my call. Where were you? You're not mad at me, right?" She'd say it playfully, but there was something sharp under every word, a quiet thread hidden beneath affection. Then came the nightmares. In them, I'd see her standing by my bed, whispering that I'd betrayed her, that I'd told someone. I'd wake up sweating, my phone lighting up with a message from her, "You awake?" It started feeling like she knew, like she could sense when I was thinking about her secret. One afternoon, while I was at work, my coworker told me someone had called pretending to be my sister. They'd asked what time I was leaving the office. When I checked the caller ID, it was an unknown number. I didn't want to assume, but my stomach sank anyway. That evening, I texted Mara, "Did you call my work today?" She replied instantly, "Why would I do that?" Then, a second later, "Why? Did someone ask about you?" When I didn't answer right away, she added, "You know I'd never let anyone hurt you, right? I'd protect you, always." That word, protect, didn't feel safe anymore. There's a moment when unease turns into quiet terror, when you realize the person who used to make you feel safest now feels like the threat. I reached that point when I caught her in my apartment. It was a Sunday afternoon. I had gone for groceries. When I came back, the door was unlocked. At first, I thought I'd just forgotten to lock it. But then I noticed my desk drawer, the one where I kept a small notebook, was open. Inside that notebook were pages where I'd written about Mara, my doubts, my fear, the confession she'd made that night. I remember my pulse hammering so loud I could hear it. When she showed up later that night, cheerful, holding wine, I couldn't stop staring at her hands. "Did you stop by earlier?" I asked. She tilted her head. "Why?" "My door was unlocked." "Oh," she smiled faintly. "Maybe you forgot. You're forgetful lately." Then she leaned closer. "But I like your new notebook." My heart froze. She knew. I didn't say a word. She didn't either. She just smiled again and poured me a glass of wine, as if she'd said nothing at all. But I didn't touch the glass. The days that followed were unbearable. Every sound outside my apartment made me flinch. Every message from her made my throat tighten. And yet, I couldn't block her, because I was terrified of what she might do if I did. This wasn't friendship anymore. It was a slow captivity, and I was too scared to escape. One night, she sent me a voice note. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "You're still my best friend, right, Lily? You wouldn't ever lie to me?" I didn't respond. My fingers hovered over the screen for minutes. Then I whispered to myself, "She's testing me." I knew then, the person I used to trust with my entire world now saw me as a liability. Her obsession wasn't about closeness anymore. It was about control, and I couldn't tell anyone. Because how do you explain a threat that wears a smile? If you find this story good, please like and subscribe our channel. It's free for you but helps us a lot to keep sharing real stories like this. I started keeping my lights on all night. I stopped posting on social media. I even told my boss I might need time off, said it was stress. Though I couldn't tell him why, but deep down, I knew something was about to happen. Something worse than a confession. Something I wouldn't be able to explain away this time. Fear doesn't always start with screams. Sometimes. It begins with silence, the kind that makes you question your own memory. I told myself I was overreacting. That maybe I'd misunderstood Mara's tone, or her joke about the notebook, or the way she appeared everywhere I went. But when people around me started acting different, when the world itself began bending away from her, I realized I wasn't imagining it. The first crack appeared in the form of a name. A name I hadn't heard before. It was at work. During a casual chat with our office janitor, Mrs. Coleman. She saw Mara's picture on my phone background, an old photo from college, and froze. That's your friend? She asked quietly. Yeah, I said, smiling. That's Mara. Her eyes darted to the floor. She looks familiar. Her tone changed, not curiosity. Recognition. She didn't say anything else. Just walked away, leaving her mop half turned against the wall. That moment stayed in my head all day. Looping knowing. That night, I googled Mara's full name. I didn't find much. Her social media was private, her LinkedIn untouched for years. But one old local news article showed up from when we were still in high school. The title read, Local Teen Missing After Mysterious Incident Near Lake Monroe. There was a blurry photo, 3 teenagers standing near the water. One of them was unmistakably Mara. The article mentioned 2 names. One was Mara's, the other, the girl named Elise, was never found. My hands trembled as I scrolled, heart pounding so loud I could barely read. There were no updates, no arrests, just silence. I didn't know what to do with that information. I couldn't accuse her. I couldn't even understand what I just found. So I did what terrified people always do. I pretended it didn't exist. But pretending didn't make the tension go away. It just made it worse. A few days later, I met with one of our old college friends, Jenny, for coffee. She hadn't spoken to Mara in years, and I'd always wondered why. Halfway through our chat, I asked, do you ever talk to Mara anymore? Jenny froze mid-sip. Why? Just asking. Is she still around? The way she said around, like she was talking about something dangerous, made my skin crawl. Yeah, we still talk, I said carefully. Lily, she leaned in, lowering her voice. If she's still in your life, be careful, okay? My stomach tightened. Why are you saying that? Because I know what happened with her cousin. What happened? Jenny hesitated, eyes darting to the window. You know what? Forget it. I shouldn't have said anything. And just like that, she left. No goodbye, no hug. Just a warning hanging in the air like a curse. That night, I couldn't sleep. I scrolled through old photos of Mara and me laughing, drunk, covered in glitter at a music festival, sitting on my floor crying over boys. I wanted to find the friend I knew. Not this stranger everyone seemed afraid of. But the more I looked, the more I noticed things I hadn't before. The way she never smiled with her eyes. How her hand always gripped my shoulder in every photo. Tight, possessive. I used to think it was affectionate. Now it looked like ownership. I tried to reach Jenny the next day. Her number was disconnected. The next crack came from Mara herself. She showed up again one evening, holding a small gift bag. Inside was a silver bracelet, the same one I'd lost months ago. Where did you find this? I asked. You left it at my place, she said smoothly. I haven't been to your place in months. She just smiled. Then I guess it missed you. That night, I locked my windows for the first time. Over the following week, things got worse. Strange calls in the middle of the night, long silences. Then a soft click. My mail arrived, opened. And twice. I found fresh footprints outside my door after rain. I went to the police once just to ask. Hypothetically, the officer smiled sympathetically, but said there wasn't much they could do unless there's direct evidence of harassment. But how do you prove a feeling? How do you report someone who's never technically done anything wrong? Just made the world tilt ever so slightly off balance. The turning point came the night I ran into Mrs. Coleman again. She was taking out trash when she saw me heading home. You still seeing that girl? She asked softly. Mara. She nodded. She used to live in my old neighborhood. Years back. You remind me of someone who, a young woman, used to visit Mara's mother. Sweet girl. Then one day she just stopped coming. I stood there frozen as Mrs. Coleman added quietly. Her name was Elise, the name from the article. I didn't even respond. I just walked home, my legs shaking, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I locked my door and sat on the floor. Every memory with Mara flashing in my mind, her smirk, her confessions, her strange fascination with loyalty. That night, Mara texted me again, thinking about you. Don't stay out too late. I turned my phone over and stared at the wall. A realization settled deep inside me, heavy, undeniable, and terrifying. I didn't know who my best friend really was, and maybe I never had. The next morning, I called in sick. I couldn't face the world pretending everything was fine anymore. Every sound outside felt like her. Every shadow looked like her shape. But worse than the fear was the guilt, because part of me still wanted to protect her. To believe there had to be another explanation. That's the thing about doubt. It eats you alive, but keeps you chained to the person causing it. That night, I wrote down everything I knew. Every strange incident. Every detail of that night she confessed. And for the first time, I considered doing something unthinkable. Finding out what really happened at Lake Monroe. Because if there was even a small chance that she'd done something to Elise or anyone else, I needed to know. Even if it meant destroying the only friendship that ever truly felt like home. When you start looking for answers, the universe has a cruel way of showing them to you, all at once, and never gently. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about that name, Elise. It played in my head like a song stuck on repeat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mara's face, her smile to still, her voice echoing. Sometimes people deserve what happens to them. By morning, I had made a decision. If there was a secret buried in her past, I was going to find it, not out of curiosity, but because I needed to know who was sitting across from me all those years. I started with what I could access. Old news archives. I searched every combination of her name with Lake Monroe, missing girl, and Elise. Most articles said the same thing. A group of teenagers had been seen near the lake that night, a small party, drinking, swimming. One of them, Elise Jordan, had vanished after midnight. No witnesses. No suspects. No body ever found. Mara's name appeared only once, listed as a friend present at the gathering. The comments under those old news threads were brutal. Rumors. Whispers about fights, jealousy, a boy both girls liked, and one strange comment, posted years later under a fake username, said, "The one who stayed silent is the one who knows the truth." I didn't know what it meant, but it made my skin crawl. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed thinking about our friendship, trying to remember if Mara had ever mentioned someone named Elise. And then I did remember a fragment. Barely there. Sophomore year, we were sitting in her car outside a diner. She'd just been dumped and was in one of her philosophical moods. She said, "People disappear when you stop seeing them as people." That's the trick. I'd laughed it off back then. But now those words made my throat dry. 2 days later, I drove to her old neighborhood, the one Mrs. Coleman mentioned. The houses were older there. Paint peeling, lawns unkempt. I parked near a small park by the water. The same lake from the article. It was quiet, empty. The kind of place where screams would disappear into the wind. There was a rusted fence and a faded sign. Private property, no trespassing. But I walked past it anyway. The ground was muddy from rain. I followed the path down toward the lake, my heart thudding. And there it was, the old dock, half broken, would darken with age. Someone had carved initials into the railing. M+E = forever. I touched it. My fingers came away trembling. That's when I heard a sound, a distant rustle. I turned around, half expecting to see her standing there. No one. Just the whisper of trees. Still, I left immediately, because suddenly, the air didn't feel empty anymore. It felt watched. When I got back home, my phone buzzed. A text from Mara. "You went out of town today." Asterisk. My stomach turned to ice. "Just errands." I replied, my hands shaking. "Funny," she wrote back. "I drove past your place and didn't see your car." I didn't reply. That night, I sat in darkness, curtains drawn, trying not to breathe too loudly. Because somehow, she always knew where I was, what I was doing. And now, I knew enough to be dangerous to her, even if I didn't understand why yet. The next day, I went to the public library. There was one more piece I needed, the police report. The clerk at the records desk was hesitant. "You can't access that without authorization," she said. "I'm researching a local story." I lied. "For a writing project." After a bit of back and forth, she handed me a heavily redacted file, pages blacked out like secrets trapped under ink. But one section was still legible. "Last seen leaving the dock area with friend Wills. Possible altercation noted." My breath caught. An altercation between Mara and Elise. And then, nothing. The rest of the file was blank. That night, I confronted Mara. I didn't plan to, but Fear has a way of turning into anger when it festers too long. She was sitting at her usual spot in the cafe when I arrived. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. "You look pale," she said. "Rough day?" I went by the lake, I blurted. Her smile froze. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes, not fear. Control breaking. "Why would you do that?" she asked softly. "I just wanted to see it. You shouldn't have gone there." "Why not?" She leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. "Because that place doesn't forget. And neither do I." Then she smiled again. That same perfect, terrifying smile. "You believe everything you read online now, Lily? You're smarter than that." But her voice was trembling, almost imperceptibly. When I left the cafe, I couldn't feel my legs. That night, I got another message, a picture. It was the dock. The same one I'd visited, taken from the exact angle where I'd been standing. The caption read, "You shouldn't play detective." I dropped my phone. My heart was slamming against my ribs. There was no mistaking it anymore. Mara wasn't trying to hide what she'd done. She was reminding me that she could still make people disappear. I packed a small bag that night, just essentials, cash, and my journal. I couldn't stay in that apartment anymore. Not with her watching. Before I left, I opened the notebook again and added one last line under my notes. "If anything happens to me, look at her." Then I closed it, locked the door, and walked into the cold night, every shadow on the street feeling like her silhouette. But the truth is, I wasn't running away. Not yet. Because there was one last thing I hadn't uncovered. Something deep inside me whispered that there was more to that story. Something even darker than a disappearance. And part of me, the part that still loved her despite everything, wanted to know the truth. Not for justice. Not for closure. But because some secrets don't just belong to the person who keeps them. They belong to the one who hears them and survives. Fear doesn't start as a scream. It begins as silence. The kind that sits in your lungs and waits for you to exhale. That's how it felt for me after that picture. After I saw the doc on my phone, taken from the exact spot where I'd stood. After that message, "You shouldn't play detective," I deleted it immediately. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. Because once someone shows you they're watching, you never stop feeling watched. I didn't go to work for 2 days. I told everyone I was sick. But the truth was, I couldn't bring myself to leave my apartment. Every sound made me flinch. The elevator, the neighbor's footsteps, the hum of the fridge. My brain twisted everything into a warning. I checked every lock twice, drew the curtains tight, slept with the lights on. But fear doesn't care about locks. It gets in through your thoughts. By the third day, she texted me. "Mara, you're quiet lately. Everything okay?" Me, "Yeah, just tired." Mara, "Funny, I dreamt of you last night. You were standing by the water." I felt my stomach drop. She was playing with me to see how I'd react. I forced my thumbs to type. Me, "Weird coincidence. Mara, maybe or maybe not." Then nothing. The chat window stayed open for hours, like a trap waiting for me to step inside again. That night, I dreamed of her voice whispering from behind my locked door. When I woke up, there were footprints outside my apartment, muddy ones, half faded by rain. Too small to be a man's. I told myself it could be anything. A neighbor, a delivery. But deep down, I knew. Because Mara always wore those black ankle boots, the ones that made no sound indoors, just enough to make you doubt you heard her coming. By the weekend, I decided to face her again. Not because I was brave, but because I couldn't live in uncertainty anymore. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted to believe I'd misunderstood everything. We met at her place. She opened the door before I could even knock. "You look awful," she said cheerfully, tilting her head. Nightmares again. Her apartment smelled like lavender and something metallic, faint but sharp. There were candles everywhere. Just like always. It looked peaceful. If you ignored how sterile everything was. No clutter. No warmth. "You've been avoiding me," she said softly, pouring tea. "No. Just busy, liar." She smiled, setting the cup in front of me. "You think I can't tell when you're lying, Lily? I know you better than you know yourself." Her tone was sweet, too. Sweet. Like honey hiding the sting. I looked at her and realized how much her face had changed. Or maybe I was only now seeing what had always been there. That subtle calculation behind her eyes. That calm detachment. Like she was studying a specimen, not talking to a friend. "You went to the lake," she finally said. "What?" I tried to act surprised. "Don't bother. I saw you, Mara. It's fine." She smiled again, cold and knowing. Curiosity is human. Just be careful where it leads you. Then she leaned closer. Some stories aren't meant to be understood, especially the ones that never ended. I didn't touch the tea. I just sat there, forcing my breath to stay even until she changed the subject. When I left, she hugged me tightly. Her mouth brushed my ear when she whispered, I missed you. You know, don't disappear on me again. And I swear I felt her smile against my skin. That night, my phone rang at 2:13 a.m. unknown number. When I answered, there was silence, just breathing. Then a woman's voice said, you shouldn't have gone back there. And the line went dead. I didn't sleep again. By sunrise, I'd packed my bags again. But something stopped me from leaving. Because fear, when it becomes familiar, starts to feel like belonging. And part of me, the sick, loyal part, couldn't let go of her. Not yet. The next few weeks blurred together. Mara and I started talking again. Carefully, like people walking on glass. She would send random texts. Did you eat? It's storming. Stay in. I drove past your place. Thought I saw someone outside. I never replied much, but her messages always came at moments that didn't make sense, moments when I hadn't posted anything, hadn't gone out, hadn't told anyone where I was. She knew. Somehow, she always knew. One afternoon, I caught her waiting outside my building. No text, no warning. Just her smiling, holding coffee. Surprise, she said. You don't look happy to see me. You scared me. That's not the word I'd use. She followed me inside, ignoring my protests. Talking the whole way up, her tone was light, but her eyes kept scanning my walls, my mail, my table. She was looking for something she thought I might have taken. Finally, she asked, you've been writing again, haven't you? Not really, liar, she said again. Her smile too tight. You always write when you're nervous. She reached for my journal on the counter, the one I'd used to document everything. And I grabbed it first. Her expression froze for a heartbeat. There was pure anger in her face, cold and sharp, like a blade glinting before the cut. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. Sorry, she laughed softly. Old habit, but I knew better. She wanted to know what I'd written, and the way she looked at me told me she suspected everything. That night, I found the same journal slightly moved from where I'd hidden it. Nothing stolen. Nothing changed, except the last page was missing, ripped out cleanly. And in its place was a folded piece of paper, written in her handwriting. Some truths are too heavy for one person to carry. Let me take care of it. That was the night I realized she wasn't trying to scare me anymore. She was trying to control me, erase my version of the story before I could tell it. And the worst part? A small, broken part of me still wanted to believe she cared. That this was all some twisted version of love. Because sometimes, fear and affection get tangled until you can't tell one from the other. Until the hand that holds you feels no different from the one that traps you. I started recording everything after that. Every text, every visit, every whisper that felt wrong. Not because I thought anyone would believe me, but because if she ever came for me again, I wanted there to be proof, even if I wasn't around to show it. But what I didn't know then was that she was already one step ahead. And by the time I realized what she was planning, it was almost too late. Asterisk, there's a point where fear stops paralyzing you and starts guiding you like it's whispering. You've already lost your safety. You might as well find the truth. That's where I was. Done hiding. Done waiting for her to make the next move. If Mara wanted to play games, fine. But this time, I was going to learn the rules. The first thing I did was dig. I started with the obvious, her full name, address, anything I could trace online. But the more I looked, the stranger it got. Her social media, almost empty. No family photos, no childhood friends, no tagged pictures from college. Just landscapes, quotes about loyalty, and captions that felt rehearsed out like someone carefully curating a version of themselves. And yet, somehow, I found something, a tag on an old fundraiser post from 4 years ago. The caption read, in memory of Sarah Vance, gone too soon. I clicked the tagged users. Mara was one of them. It turned out Sarah Vance was her college roommate, the girl who, according to old campus threads, had died after a fall from a dorm balcony. An accident, they'd said. But the police report summary, which I found buried on a local news archive, mentioned something else. That the only witness had been a close friend, a woman who'd left town shortly after the incident. Her name was redacted, but I didn't need to see it. I knew. It was Mara. My best friend, the one who told me she once did something she couldn't take back, the one who had whispered that confession like it was a prayer. And suddenly, everything made sense. The fear of questions, the obsession with control. She wasn't afraid of being misunderstood. She was afraid of being found out. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding heart. Part of me wanted to run, but another part, the one that had spent months suffocating under her shadow, was done being afraid. So I called someone I hadn't spoken to in months. My brother, Ryan, he'd always said there was something off about her. The way she'd watch people a beat too long. The way she'd twist stories to make herself the victim. I need your help, I said, voice shaking. You sound like hell, he replied. What's going on? It's Mara. I think she lied about everything. I told him everything. The confession, the messages, the footprints, the missing journal page. And when I mentioned Sarah Vance's name, there was a pause. Lily, he said finally. You can't handle this alone. He drove over that same evening. Seeing him felt like the first real breath I'd taken in months. But when he saw the fear in my face, his expression hardened. We need evidence, he said. Something solid, not just stories. I have some, I said, handing him my phone. Messages, notes, dates, good. Keep copies of everything. And Lily, don't let her know you're onto her. That night, for the first time, I slept without looking over my shoulder because I wasn't alone anymore. But peace never lasts long when someone like Mara is involved. 2 days later, she called. Her voice was calm. To calm. I've been thinking, she said. Maybe we should go somewhere. Just us. Like old times. Where? The lake. My grip tightened around the phone. I'm busy, I said quickly. You used to love it there, she whispered. You told me it made you feel free. That was before. Before what? Her voice sharpened like a blade. Before you started snooping. Before you thought you could hide things from me. My heart stopped. She knew. Mara. It's okay, she interrupted softly. We'll talk when you're ready. You always come back to me. Double quotes clicked. I stood there, shaking, realizing she was right about one thing. She had been watching me again. The next morning, my brother found the note first. It was slipped under my door, written on the same kind of stationery she always used. You can't rewrite the past, Lily, but you can join it. Ryan wanted to go straight to the police, but I stopped him. If we do that now, she vanish. She's too careful. We need her to slip. He didn't like it. But he didn't stop me either. That night, I made a plan. I remembered something. The memorial post for Sarah Vance had listed a donation link. When I checked the archive site, it was still active. And the listed organizer, Mara Kingsley. I clicked the contact button. The email bounced back immediately. But there was a secondary contact. A co-organizer named Tessa Clark. I found her Facebook. A mother of 2, living 3 states away. Her recent post said, hard to believe it's been 4 years. I still remember what you told me that night, Mara. I wish I'd called the police. My blood ran cold. Because it wasn't the post itself. It was the comments underneath. One of them read, what did she say? And Tessa had replied, she said some people don't deserve forgiveness. Not after what they did to Sarah. That was it. That was the thread I needed to pull. I messaged Tessa, told her I was an old friend of Mara's, and that something wasn't right. At first, she hesitated, but when I mentioned Sarah's name, she went quiet. Then she sent me a voice note. If you're really her friend, you should get away from her. I didn't believe her at first either, but when she told me what happened, what she did, I stopped sleeping for months. She said Sarah found out something she wasn't supposed to, and that one night, she lost control. She said it was an accident, but she also said she never regretted it. The voice trembled by the end. I just sat there, staring at my phone, realizing the truth I'd been avoiding all along. It wasn't just a bad decision. Mara had confessed that night. It was a crime. And the way she said she couldn't take it back. She hadn't meant guilt. She'd meant finality. That night, I recorded everything. The messages, the screenshots, the voice note, and stored copies online. Ryan told me to leave town, but I refused. No, I said, if I run, she wins. This time, I'm going to end it. He looked at me. Conflicted. Lily, you're playing with fire. Then it's time she burns. Fear had turned into something else. Now, something sharp. Something focused. For months, she'd written the story. Now it was my turn to hold the pen. Because sometimes, the moment you stop running is the moment your life stops belonging to the person who hurt you. And in that silence that follows, you finally hear your own voice again. Some truths don't explode in one moment. They unravel slowly, like a thread being pulled until the whole thing comes apart. That's how it was with Mara. Every lie, every carefully placed smile, every moment she made me doubt myself. It was all starting to collapse, and I wasn't running anymore. Not from her, not from what she'd done, not from who she really was. It began with one message, the one that would start everything. Me, we need to talk in person. About Sarah, she replied almost instantly. Mara, I knew you'd come around me tonight. At the lake. It was the same place where her first confession had started all of this. The dock where she'd once said she'd done something she couldn't take back. Only this time. I was ready. Ryan didn't like the idea, but he understood what it meant. We set up the recorder in my jacket, cinched it to his phone parked nearby, and waited for night to fall. The lake was quiet, except for the wind slicing through the trees. The air smelled like rain. Mara was already there when I arrived, standing at the edge of the dock. Her reflection broken in the dark water. She turned when she heard my footsteps. You came, she said softly. You wanted me to. You look tired, she said, her voice almost tender. You should have stayed out of this. Out of what? I asked, stepping closer. Out of stories that don't belong to you. Asterisk, her tone changed sharper now. There was something gleaming in her eyes. Something that almost looked like satisfaction. I read your little notes, she said. You think you figured me out, don't you? You killed her, I whispered. You killed Sarah. For a second, her face didn't move. Then, the faintest flicker of something. Not guilt. Not shock. Recognition. Double quotes. You shouldn't say things you don't understand, she said. Tessa told me what you said that night. I pressed on. You told her some people don't deserve forgiveness. You told her it was an accident. Tessa talks too much. That was it. Cold. Flat. No denial. The silence between us stretched until it hurt. The lake rippled under the moonlight, and for a moment, I could almost see her younger. The girl she used to be before she learned to hide behind her charm. Why, Mara? I asked quietly. Why did you tell me? She tilted her head, smiling faintly. Because you remind me of her. Sarah, curious, kind, naive. That's not an answer, isn't it? She took a step closer, her voice soft but heavy. She tried to leave. After everything we'd been through, the secrets, the plans, the nights we told each other we were all we needed. Then one day, she decided I wasn't enough. Her tone cracked slightly. She called me controlling, said I scared her. Do you know how that feels, Lily? To be someone's everything, and then suddenly, their nightmare. Her words were almost a confession wrapped in longing. I wanted to move, but I couldn't. It was like the air had thickened around us. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered finally. She fell. I panicked. You didn't call for help. She was already gone, she said. Then her expression hardened, and I couldn't let them take everything from me again. Asterisk, so you ran, wouldn't you? The way she said it, calm, deliberate, it chilled me more than any scream ever could. You told me you couldn't take something back. I said slowly. That's what you meant that night. Yes, she said simply. And for a while, I thought telling you would help. That maybe if you knew, I wouldn't have to carry it alone. And when I started asking questions, you disappointed me, she said, almost lovingly. You were supposed to understand. Instead, you tried to destroy me. She smiled again, that familiar, haunting curve of her lips. But don't worry. It won't matter soon. What do you mean? You've been unstable for weeks, Lily. People have noticed. The calls to the landlord, the break-ins, the paranoia. I've been documenting it. Asterisk, she gestured toward her phone. It's funny how easy it is to make someone look crazy when they already sound afraid. I froze. Every message she'd sent, every visit she'd made, every whisper that made me doubt my sanity. It wasn't random. She'd been setting me up. You planned this. I pressed. I had to. You wouldn't stop digging. Her eyes glistened under the dock light. Asterisk, and if I can't trust you, Lily, then I can't keep you. That was the moment Ryan's voice came through my earpiece. Lily, leave now. But I didn't move. Not yet. You said she fell. I whispered. But you're lying. You weren't there. No, I said. But I know you pushed her. Asterisk, for the first time, she flinched, a small, involuntary twitch. That was all it took. Because the recorder in my jacket was already capturing everything, every word, every subtle confession, and Ryan was already streaming it to his laptop. Saving copies in real time. You can't prove anything, she said quietly. I don't have to, I said, turning away. You just did. I started walking, but she grabbed my arm, her nails dug in deep. Don't walk away from me. You already did that once, I said, jerking free. When you let her fall, her expression broke for just a second, a flicker of rage. Then grief, then nothing. She didn't follow me as I left the dock. 2 days later, the police came. Ryan handed over everything, the recordings, the notes, the screenshots. dots. The archived news. They took statements, copies, timelines. When they found the necklace she'd kept, the same one Sarah had been wearing the night she died, it was over. Mara was arrested quietly. No struggle. The news ran one small story about new evidence reopening a campus death investigation. Her name was mentioned once, then buried beneath more urgent headlines, but I didn't need the world to know. I just needed to breathe again. In the days that followed, I kept thinking about the doc, about the girl she once confessed to, and the woman she'd become. I wondered if she ever truly regretted it, or if part of her believed she'd only done what she had to. Because the scariest thing about monsters is that they never think they are one. They think they're the victim, misunderstood, cornered, unloved. That's what makes them dangerous. When they took her away, she looked back at me once. And for the first time, I didn't see anger in her eyes, just relief, like she was finally free of the secret she'd been carrying, even if it meant losing everything else. When the truth finally comes out, you think it'll feel like victory. It doesn't. It feels like silence, the kind that follows after a storm, heavy, wet, and full of things you can't name. Mara was gone, just like that. No more texts. No more calls. No more voice at the edge of my thoughts telling me what I could or couldn't say. But instead of relief, I felt empty. The news spread quietly, like whispers through town. A reopened case, a tragic accident that may not have been accidental. No headline screamed her name. People who once adored her vanished from her circle overnight. Her social media accounts went dark. The pictures disappeared. The comments turned to dust. It was like she'd never existed, except she had in me. Every corner of my life had traces of her, the mug she'd bought me, the playlist she made for road trips, the lavender candle I'd never lit. Again, it's strange how someone can become the air you breathe and the poison that chokes you at the same time. Ryan stayed with me the first week. After her arrest, he made coffee, opened the curtains, and filled the silence with things that didn't need answers. But some nights, when I'd wake up at 3 a.m., I'd catch him watching me quietly, like he was afraid I'd break if he said the wrong thing. You did the right thing? He'd say. Then why does it feel like I didn't? I'd whisper back. He'd never answer, because there wasn't one. They called me in to testify 2 weeks later. Just a hearing, small, procedural, nothing dramatic. Mara didn't look up when I entered the courtroom. Her hair was tied back, her wrists cuffed loosely in front of her. She looked smaller, quieter, but her eyes, when she finally turned toward me, were the same. Sharp, calculating, almost curious. When I took the stand, my voice shook. The prosecutor asked me to confirm what she'd said that night. The recordings played through a small speaker. She fell. I panicked. You didn't call for help. She was already gone. Hearing it out loud made me shiver, not because of what she said, but because of how calm she'd sounded when she said it. The defense tried to paint her as unstable, fragile, misunderstood. But when they asked if I believed she was dangerous, I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said, but only when she thinks she's losing control. She smiled then, just slightly, and I realized, even in that courtroom, in those handcuffs, she still thought she was winning something when it was over. The prosecutor thanked me. Ryan hugged me. But I walked out of that room feeling like I'd left a piece of myself behind, because the truth doesn't set you free. Not really. It just replaces one kind of prison with another. A month later, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name, written in neat handwriting I'd know anywhere. Inside, it said, "You are the only person I ever told the truth to. Don't pretend you didn't want to hear it. You were drawn to it, the darkness, the danger. You wanted to understand me. Maybe you still do. Maybe that's why you can't stop thinking about me. You think I lost. But I didn't, because now you'll never forget me." There was no signature, just a faint smudge of lavender across the paper, her perfume. I'd burned the letter, but the smell stayed in my room for days. I tried to move on after that. New job, new apartment, new friends. I told myself I'd rebuilt my life. But the thing about people like Mara is that they don't leave your story. They stain it. Some nights, I'd still hear her voice in my head. Soft, patient, persuasive, telling me I misunderstood her, telling me she was the victim, telling me she loved me in her own broken way. And for a terrifying second, I'd almost believe her. A therapist once told me that trauma rewires your instincts, that when someone manipulates you long enough, your brain starts mistaking fear for familiarity. That's why leaving her hadn't felt like freedom. It had felt like grief, because she was my best friend, and part of me still missed her. Not the monster she became, but the girl who once sat with me on my kitchen floor, laughing until dawn, promising we'd never lie to each other. And maybe that's the cruelest us part when love and betrayal occupy the same memory. The trial ended quietly. She pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter after her attorney found new witnesses from the old case. 6 years. No statements. No apologies. Just silence. When I read the verdict, I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just stood there, staring at the words that closed a chapter one never wanted written. Months later, I went back to the lake. It was late afternoon, wind brushing across the water, light shifting gold against the trees. I sat at the end of the dock, the same place it all began, and watched my reflection ripple in the water. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of what I'd see looking back, because I finally understood something. The truth doesn't destroy you. It just strips away the illusions that kept you safe. And once they're gone, you're left with the raw, quiet honesty of what's left to you. I whispered into the wine, "You were wrong, Mara. I do forget you a little more every day." And as the sun dipped behind the horizon, the water stilled, calm, almost forgiving. I took a deep breath and finally stood up. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was walking away from something. I was walking towards something else, myself. It's strange how quiet life feels when the noise finally stops. For months, I lived waiting for the next knock on the door, the next text, the next twist of fate that would drag me back into her orbit. But one morning, I woke up and it was gone. The fear, the paranoia, the echo of her voice in my head. Just silence. I made coffee, opened the curtains, and watched sunlight spill over the table. It felt foreign. Like my life had been scrubbed clean. But in the process, someone erased parts of me too. Because healing doesn't feel like victory. It feels like forgetting who you were before the pain began. People ask sometimes, what happened to her? They say it casually over dinner, as if asking about a storm that passed years ago. And I give them the short version: she's serving time, or we don't talk anymore. But the truth is more complicated than that. The truth is, I still carry her, not as a friend or an enemy, but as a shadow that taught me what light really means. I used to believe friendship was built on understanding, on knowing each other's stories, sharing the deepest, ugliest parts of ourselves without fear. But now I know that sometimes love blinds you to what's right in front of you. That sometimes the person you defend with your life is the one quietly rewriting your reality. And that's the danger of loving someone you don't fully know. They can make you forget who you are in the process. There's a quote my therapist once told me: "We don't grieve people. We grieve the version of ourselves that existed with them." That hit me harder than I expected. Because with Mara, I wasn't just losing a friend. I was losing the girl who trusted too easily, who believed loyalty could fix broken people, the version of me who thought love was enough. She's gone now. In her place is someone quieter, slower to trust, but stronger. Not colder, just aware. Some nights, when I walk past the lake, I still catch my reflection rippling in the water. And for a second, I think I see her standing beside me, smiling like she used to. It doesn't scare me anymore. It almost feels like closure. Because now I understand something I never did before. We don't always get to choose the people who shape us. But we do get to choose what their impact means. Mara's story could have ruined me. Instead, it reminded me how sacred trust really is. How dangerous love can become when it's laced with power and control. And how important it is to walk away, even when your heart refuses to. Last month, I found an old photo of us. Two girls on a rooftop, laughing like nothing bad could ever touch us. I stared at it for a long time before I slipped it into a drawer. Not to forget, but to remember without hurting. Because memory, when it's ready, becomes gentler. It stops screaming and starts whispering, "You survived." I've met new people since then. Some of them ask about my past, curious about the story behind the calm in my voice. I just tell them. I learned the hard way what friendship really means. They nod, not pressing further. They don't know that the hard way means sitting across from a person you once loved and realizing they were a stranger all along. That it means waking up every day for months and reteaching yourself what safe feels like. But that's okay. They don't need to know. Some stories belong to silence, not secrecy, just peace. One day, I might write her name down, not to curse it, not to expose her, but to let it go. Because forgiveness, I've learned, isn't saying what they did was okay. It's saying I won't let it own me anymore. And that's what I've done, slowly, quietly, honestly. When people ask what I've learned from all this, I tell them the truth, that evil doesn't always come wearing a mask. Sometimes it comes dressed as loyalty. Sometimes it holds your hand when you cry and promises to protect you. And sometimes it tells you its darkest secret, not to be freed from guilt, but to see how far your love will bend before it breaks. That's what Mara did. And that's how I learned that real friendship isn't about knowing everything about someone. It's about feeling safe in what you don't know. because trust isn't. Blind, it's earned. Last week, I drove past her old apartment. It's empty now, blinds drawn, mailbox gone. The air around it felt still, but not haunted, just finished. I parked for a moment, watching the sunset behind the building. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel fear. Just gratitude for the lessons, for the scars, for the fact that I can finally stand in the wreckage of what was and still believe in people again. Before I left, I whispered, I hope you find peace, Mara. I already have. And as I drove away, the city lights blurred against the windshield, soft, golden, forgiving. It wasn't an ending, just a quiet return to myself. Because sometimes survival isn't about winning. It's about learning how to live again without the shadows of those who once called you friend.